Today, I'm really excited to be joined by one of my favorite people, Helen from the Clueless Fangirl. Helen, it's finally here and it's friggin' awesome.
Oh my God, it is. I'm so
Like,
happy.
I know, it's just, I don't really like it might be the best, Star Wars that we've seen in a while, right?
Yeah, because the last thing was The Last Jedi and Solo, so yay.
Well, we're not going to
You
get
know
into
my
that
thoughts on that.
today. Today does contain spoilers for episode number 1 and number 2 of The Mandalorian. We are going to be giving kind of our first impressions of The Mandalorian, what we thought about the episodes, Easter eggs. We got some really fun things to talk about. We're going to talk about the characters. We're really going to talk about it all today. And yeah, we hope that you're going to be enjoying this podcast and joining us in the conversation. So, Helen, where should we start? We really start off on this icy planet, get these really interesting vibes from the Mandalorian, and we find out that he's on a mission.
Yeah, well, let's start, please. Let's start with the score and the music because literally, I mean, there's not much dialogue, especially from the Mandalorian. And so let's start with the score, please, because it is so amazing. It's like those old Italian Western movies vibe, and I just love it. Like this Göransson guy, he did
Yeah,
such
he's
a
the
good
guy that
job.
did the Black Panther score, which
Yeah,
was
yeah. Oh,
excellent.
yeah, that was awesome. But I mean, oh my God, it's so good. Whenever I hear it now, it's yeah, so good.
So one thing I really found about the score that I liked, and one thing that I learned to love with Game of Thrones is the leitmotifs, these kind of cues that give us, a more triumphant moment or a sad
Mm,
moment, and really gets to evoke and uplift the scene
yeah.
that we're watching. And I felt that a few different times in episode 1 specifically. One scene that really comes to mind for me was the blacksmith scene where we get the flashback to when the Confederacy of Independent Systems is actually attacking the Mandalorian's people. But there's this triumphant music when the blacksmith is crafting the Beskar steel and crafting this new piece of armor for the Mandalorian. And it felt triumphant, like, hey,
Well, if that is not foreshadowing.
yeah, I think it is foreshadowing because they talked about kind of in reference really to what is your color going to be, what is your house sigil going to be essentially
Yeah.
for the Mandalorian. So great that you point that out, Helen. I really do feel like that the score has been a strong point in the first 2 episodes.
Mm, yeah. It doesn't feel in the beginning I was like, "Oh, this doesn't feel Star Wars," but I don't mind that it isn't the Star Wars themes we know. I love it. It fits to the vibe we get and to the visuals we get, which are a bit similar, but then also they're not.
I heard a few other content creators say this is more Marvel Disney-esque. It's more superhero-esque. It's not your
Mm,
John
yeah,
Williams per se. And I
yeah,
heard some people say, hey, this was kind of part of, like, one of the weak points of the Mandalorian. Hey, we really like everything else, but the music is not really in line with what we've enjoyed with Star Wars. But particularly, I mean, we're getting, like you said, these Western vibes, and I really did feel like the music fit what was going on with the episodes.
yeah. And it feels more grounded than all the other scores we know. And the thing is, The Mandalorian is more grounded because you don't have this epic space battle, at least
Yeah.
as of now. So you feel the vibe of him being on those planet or that planet doing his missions. It's not about the bigger picture, not about the space. It's like the little stories now. And I love that. And I think the score fits perfectly to that.
Well, what's interesting is when we get to Star Wars, dun, 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 it's like this epic
It's big.
whole
Yeah.
universe,
Yeah.
everything in life, and we even hear Luke talk about that in the Last Jedi. For those of you that don't like it, he talks about the Force as something that permeates everything, and we're
Mm,
learning that some of the characters might not even really know what that is. So it's really interesting that you mentioned kind of
yeah.
these more grounded moments with the Mandalorian and kind of these smaller stories that we're you know
Mm,
getting more focused on.
mm. Yeah.
So let's actually jump from the score a little bit. We both enjoyed the score. Hopefully all of you enjoyed the score. I felt it really enhanced the scenes. Who directed the first episodes, Helen?
Dave Filoni, my personal favorite. Please make him president of Lucasfilm soon. No, yeah, Dave Filoni. No.
So
Was it
why are you?
who?
So can you tell me why you're a fan of Filoni, and for other people out there who might not know much about Dave Filoni?
Because I love Rebels so much. Like Rebels is my thing, and I mean animated series might not be for everybody, but it's not for kids, as other
Yeah,
people try to make you think. And I don't. After watching a few episodes, you don't even realize it's animated. I'm not a big anime fan per se, but you don't really realize it because you're so deep into the story, and he's so good, and he knows the law so well, and he is
he's
the
really tight with George Lucas, I
he
believe.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
He is literally the I mean, George Lucas loves his work, and he said that many times. And we know Lucas calls Disney the
Well,
white
Lucas was on
slave
set
owners and
for some
stuff.
of these episodes and specifically directed. So
Yeah,
that's good news.
it's a
The
good
creator,
sign. Yeah,
right?
it's a good sign. Yeah.
But by design, I think as well to have him there is yeah. So Dave Filoni, for those of you that he's involved in other Star Wars projects, really interesting guy. Loves Star Wars, maybe as passionate a Star Wars fan as anybody out there. And yeah, he was, did I what I thought was a great job, especially with the first episode. Kind of,
Yeah. It
like the
set the
first
tone.
yeah, yeah. It didn't feel like they needed to explain the whole universe in the episode, Helen.
Mm.
I felt like they kind of just dropped this in there and we felt like we were there as opposed to kind of like, these origin stories that we get, with like Iron Man and Spider-Man and these other movies. You got to kind of explain things. It didn't feel like that because it just felt natural when we were dropped in kind of the episode.
Hmm. Yeah.
So episodes, we both like them, but we're gonna get kind of into the meat of the stuff. We got a point here, Helen. We kind of talked a little bit earlier before the podcast about the planet that the
Hmm.
Mandalorian goes to, other than the icy planet. Is it Tatooine? Me and you talked about it. We were debating it, and I
Yeah, because of
actually
the because of the Jawas. That is why I thought. I mean, yeah, races they don't normally live on various planets. So because the Jawas were there, I thought it's Tatooine, but apparently not.
So this is from StarWars.com. I actually just this morning went and made to fact check this. Quill, who is the vapor farmer, we find I have spoken, which Helen has been
God.
repeating to me nonstop. Every single conversation we have, by the way, ends with I have spoken. And then I say I have spoken, and then it's kind of just like who has the last I have spoken. So it's very funny.
It
But
takes
I
years.
have spoken. We hear him say he came to seek peace. In this world, which is now being trespassed upon criminals and mercenaries,
Yeah,
which we see, which is why he kind of tasks him to go do this job. But he has worked a lifetime to be free of servitude, which we get. But he's actually not on Tatooine. It's called Arvala 7, and he's a vapor farmer
yeah.
on Arvala 7. So not Tatooine. Some people have speculated from some of the posters and different shots because
Mm.
of the two suns. It might be Tatooine. It's not Tatooine. But certainly they kind of are trying to give us these New Hope vibes for sure with the
Yeah.
Jawas and all of that. So for those of you out there who is hoping it's Tatooine, it's not. It's called Arvala 7.
Which is fine because literally Tatooine has been used so many times now. It's fine to get to new planets, and the Mandalorian has nothing to do with Tatooine, which wouldn't make it wouldn't make that much sense. But then Tatooine and baby Yoda, which we come to soon, would make sense. Force, blah, Luke and Yoda. But I'm glad it's not. I'm fine.
So one thing that we both noticed, and I think a lot of people have talked about, Star Wars certainly kind of, when the first Star Wars came out, it really set the bar as far as CGI goes. I mean, these space battles, these were these movies that kind of set the tone for the future of filmmaking that we now see with all the amazing CGI and these blockbuster films and superhero films. I feel like there was a really nice mix of CGI and practical effects, Helen.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
got John Favreau, of course, who's the showrunner. He's worked in Marvel movies. He himself is an actor within Marvel movies, but he's fantastic in the Iron Man films. But I felt like fight scenes, even though they felt fantastical and there was CGI,
Mm.
there really isn't that much, and they kind of use the sets and the landscapes to kind of enhance each scene. And I really did feel like there was a nice balance. What about you? What were your thoughts kind of on the CGI and everything?
Yeah, well, the thing is, why I never liked the prequels. I mean, you are completely right when you say, Lucas Arts was always like, I don't know, even 10 years ahead of their game, even in the 70s, because
Yeah.
Lucas always, he never accepted if his guys from Lucas Arts told him, oh, this is not possible. He said, make it possible. And this is how he's always been. And me, it was too much. Maybe it was too soon and it didn't fit because it didn't look that good as it looks now, right? Because that was late
Yeah.
90s. And I never loved that in the prequels. That's what I didn't like. Because I love the rundown, old, shabby look, like the Millennium Falcon looked and all that. Because it gives you a real vibe. Because this is so something. It can't all be super flashy and that's it didn't give me a good feeling. And I think they understood that even with the Yoda dolls they then used later, like the real dolls and not completely CGI. And I think they understood that. And as you say, it's a good mix of both, but you can completely see like when the Mando touches all his armor and gear, it's real, it's not CGI. And I love that. Even the
Well,
ships and everything.
interestingly enough, that you mentioned kind of, the practicality. There's been great releases on Netflix recently, The Age of Resistance, Dark Crystal, which has puppetry. But one thing that I found actually about what they were doing with Baby Yoda and kind of the filming and directing of season one is that there was puppetry and also CGI. So it's not just all
Yeah.
CGI
No.
with the Baby Yoda, which I believe is going to be the number one selling toy
Oh my
over
god.
Christmas
I
time. We're going to
want
get it.
it. It's so
Yeah, yeah,
cute.
we're going to talk about that after. We're going to have a big section about Baby Yoda, but it's absolutely true, and I feel the same way about the prequels. It felt like overdone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was kind of the thing that they felt like they needed to do for the prequels to kind of match the
Yeah.
success that they had with with the original trilogy. So, um,
And
yeah,
that was always a big part of Lucas, it was not about the dialogues or that stuff. It was also, like the artwork and all that and the technical effects. That's a big part of what Lucas stands for. So good on him, but we weren't ready then. Maybe even now, when I watch it now, I cringe on some scenes, especially like the planet scenes with all the CGI. There's nothing real. It's just green screen, and that's shit.
so now we're
Sorry.
going to get in kind of some of the characters that we didn't get as much screen time with. Let's talk a little bit about Dr. Pershing. Really
A
interesting character,
name, I mean, Dr.
Dr.
Fresh.
Pershing. That would be how Gemma would say it. Just kidding. But Dr. Pershing from Camino, which you found out the cloning facility from Attack of the Clones. How did you find this out, Helen?
Well, he had like a badge on his whatever he was wearing, his doctor thingy
Yeah.
uniform, and he had that patch from Camino. And yeah, as you said, it's the facility from Attack of the Clones. So, what is it? Why was he working there? Is he working for them? Is it still running? Super interesting.
Well, let's have this conversation now. Then, now that you bring it up, because that's really interesting. We now have a clear motive as to why, because of what we saw in episode 2, as to why they are searching for this child, why they want this child. Of course,
Mm.
we hear Dr. Pershing say, that's not, no, we can't kill this child. We need this child, as opposed to what we see with IG-11 and
Yeah.
Warner Herzog's client. He talks about, hey, like, we actually need this child. There's a specific reason, and I actually think it ties in with Emperor Palpatine. I think it's actually going to, yeah, I think it's going to be a huge reveal. But I mean, think about it. Yoda lived for a long, long time, right? Like this,
Mm.
they talk about the age specifically, right? IG-11 says some species age differently than
Yeah.
others. Why is that brought up specifically? And then, of course, if they are specifically looking for this child, and they like, are they worried about it becoming the next Jedi Master, like Yaddle or Yoda? There's obviously a specific reason why they feel threatened by a child, and I think.
Yeah, do you think they feel threatened, or do you think because in Rebels, or was it in Clone? No, in Rebels, they're looking to steal them from the parents.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're threatened by it or if they just want to use it.
to
That's
create
the
sort of
question.
maybe this elite force of
Yeah.
stormtroopers that are force sensitive. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
heard that too, because behind the scenes, if Palpatine is around, you would think that he would maybe try to achieve that, because the Empire did end up falling, and we do have the kind of these remnants scattered. So if this
Yeah.
is what's going on, and I do think this is kind of where they're trying to thread it, as Episode 9 comes out next month, and I'm
Yeah.
99% certain we're getting Emperor Palpatine in that.
Yay.
So I think it's really interesting that this, like, we're obviously gonna find out more as to why. They want the child. It's gonna be revealed for sure. But
Yeah.
we just get the reveal that I think we all knew that that this child is special for a reason and is force sensitive.
Yeah.
So all of these bounty hunters, the three different. Let's talk about this.
Yeah. Yeah, they are not all sent by the client. That is by Werner Herzog. I'm pretty sure that because they had different missions, like IG-11 had to kill the baby. So it must be, I don't think Herzog went against Dr. Pershing. He just said, okay, well, you can kill it if there's no other way, but I don't think he hired him, right? So it must be someone else. Who is it? And who sent the other guys? So it's like 3 people after this baby, but I think it's 3 different fractions because they had different missions.
It's really interesting because obviously the Mandalorians, we hear the Mandalorians speak about how the weapon is part of their religion, which is really interesting. Obviously, they have a specific code. I feel like that we're going to find more about as the season progresses, obviously, because the Mandalorian is our main protagonist. But I think it's going to be really interesting to kind of see the different sets of codes between the different bounty hunters, kind of the different rules that they have, the different kind of ideals that they follow within each organization, within each faction. And the Mandalorian puts his reputation on the line by saving this baby. So it's really interesting to see what kind of ramifications it might have for the rest of his order. The blacksmith who actually made this piece of armor for him, like, he took a payment from the client. So there's supposed to be this trade, and that trade is obviously not happening now. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of see, if some of the bounty hunter factions team up together, if they're going to be working in unison, because there's like this big payment that could be paid out to get the Mandalorian and the child.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be really interesting to kind of see how this moves forward throughout the season.
Yeah. And just to get back to the 3 fractions, because there were other people looking for the baby, because remember what Quill, whatever his name is,
Yeah,
Quill
Kill.
said? He said there were many people before you, right? So this hunt for this baby has been going on since a really long time. Question is, was it always the client, Werner Herzog? Was it, like, this seems to be a thing since not the Mandalorian showing up.
Let's talk about him a little bit. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
This character, Werner Herzog.
Werner Herzog.
Werner Herzog.
Yeah.
So let's talk about pronunciation for a second. For those of you who are watching, I looked on the internet, can't find a pronunciation for Nick Nolte's character, Quill. So if we're not saying it properly, please feel free to let us know in the comment section. We apologize for butchering it. Now back to Werner Herzog's character, the client. He's wearing an interesting imperialist medal, which I find really interesting. Let's talk a little bit about him. Like, we know that there's remnants of the Empire, obviously, because there's stormtroopers in the room. The Mandalorian acts quite quickly when the door opens, so there's obviously some tension. There's not a lot of trust there. We know, obviously, when Mandalorian had the flashback, something happened to his family. He's an orphan himself, which is why we find the connection even stronger between him and the baby. But what's going on with this Werner Herzog character, the client? Like, what's he up to?
Well, I don't think he's military. He doesn't look like a military guy to me. He looks like a governor or a morph, like Tarkin was a Grand Morph, but there are also morphs like somebody.
Kind of like an SS, like yeah. Well, they're bad people.
Yeah, of course. And Herzog being German.
Oh my God! I made it bad. I didn't mean it like that. I meant
me being German.
Look at the First Order. They're basically not.
I know. Yeah. Oh my God. Look at the visuals.
Yeah.
I'm Jewish myself.
Similar to how we had with Daenerys Targaryen in Game of Thrones season 8.
Yeah.
The imagery was very strong, especially when they're. General Hux, come on,
Oh
man.
my
Okay.
God, Hux's speech. Yeah, that was like good old days.
But
And
back to Werner Herzog after my terrible mic drop there.
yeah. No, so he's not military, I would say. And just to be, because the reactions on his character were so amazing. Like his voice, literally, I mean, it screams baddie. It's so good. I loved him in the trailers, but I think he's perfect for that role. And he, he's mysterious and everything.
Yeah.
So it's perfect. But like you said, yeah, reminiscent of the Empire, and he talks about it. But those stormtroopers look like shit. They look really, what have these guys been through? And
Well, interestingly enough, if you watch the trailer, there's some stormtroopers' heads on spikes later on.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't necessarily, and I mean, the
yeah,
Mandalorian, if you watch the trailer, kind of a spoiler here, he has more pieces of Beskar steel armor placed on him later, and the blasts are reflecting
yeah,
off him. So I don't think those stormtroopers are going to be living very long.
yeah, no.
But yeah, they look like shit. The Remnant looks like shit. Remnant of the
Yeah,
Empire looks
and
like shit.
yeah, but then he has all this Beskar, so he must be rich. So what's the deal? It's weird, but I think he's not military, and he doesn't care. Like if he would be military, those guys would look perfect, I'd say. But he doesn't care for that. He cares for his plan, whatever his plan is.
Now, one thing that's really interesting that he does say, and I pointed out in my episode review for episode 1, is that he said, this belongs with the Mandalorians. That's really interesting. I found that, and we obviously, I mean, when he presents it to the Mandalorian, he obviously know how important it is to their culture. We're going to talk about Mandalorian culture, and you know quite a bit more about Rebels than I do. So we're going to talk a little bit about Mandalorian, specifically why it can, Beskar steel can actually only come from Mandalore and their Moon Concordia. So Werner Herzog is, I feel like in this moment, trying to manipulate the Mandalorian a little bit, and the
Yeah.
Mandalorian yet still makes the decision to kill IG-11. So I find there's definitely going to be some interesting tension between these two characters, and we're going to find out more about Werner Herzog's kind of inner machinations and what he's really up to. But there's something going on there. He knows that Beskar steel is important to the Mandalorians' kind of culture and religion.
Yeah, and they have been, like they invaded the planet, and they took and they used all the Beskar they could find, the Empire. So
And they used it. They used it for the Death Star, and
yeah,
also and the Clone Wars and all of that. So it's going to be really interesting to see, and it's extremely rare now. So that's
it's super. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
So really interesting. We both agree that this character, Werner Herzog. And one thing that I also found interesting is in an interview, he said he hadn't seen the Star Wars movies.
Yeah, yeah. You know
Which
why?
is-
You know why he took on the role? He said I think in an interview with Variety or something.
Yeah.
He said he said, "Oh yeah, I just took it because I need the money to finance one of my projects." I was like, okay, good.
But
on you.
one thing that he did mention, and he's a highly respected actor. He's obviously, I mean, his resume speaks for himself, but he says this is getting back to real filmmaking and
Yeah.
cinematography. So that praise, I mean, obviously he's working on the show, so he has more of a reason to say that, but high praise from Werner Herzog.
Mm.
So let's talk a little bit. What do you want to talk about next? We want to talk about Kill. He's an interesting character. He's probably my favorite character so far. I
Oh,
really like
God.
him so far.
Yeah.
He's so sweet.
Yeah, he is. And when I heard, when I think we talked like a month or even longer ago, we talked about
I think it was
the
in our first
Mandalorian.
podcast.
Yeah, the first podcast, we talked about Nick Nolte. What's his character? Who's he playing? And I thought Nick Nolte is one of those dodgy guys, or maybe a bar owner or something. I said, I think my bet was on he owned one of those cantina bars.
Yeah, cantinas.
But no, he's like the nicest, coolest thing ever. And you talked about he's an Ognat, and we saw them working like they were kind of slave laborers under the Empire. And you saw one scene in Empire Strikes Back, when they froze Han in the carbonite.
He's working with the droids, is he not?
Yeah, also that, and I think they were working there in all those facilities. So you saw a little of them in Empire Strikes Back, but apparently due to canon, they were slave laborers under the Empire, and that's what he mentions when he talks to the Mando. What you said before, like I've worked all my life, now I want some peace and quiet, and I don't want to work for somebody again. I just want to have my own thing.
Because he refuses payment twice.
Yeah.
Really interesting. And he says, I will not take your payment. You have brought peace to my valley.
Yeah.
And
very honorable, but that's also like Western style. You've brought peace to my valley.
what I really like about their relationship so far, what I really think about it going forward, is they're going to learn a lot from each other. Because, like, listen, a bounty hunter has to kind of abide by these contracts, right? There's a specific set of things that they have to do, and then we see kind of this moral code that this other character has, right?
Yeah.
And they're kind of and then obviously before the end of episode 2, he says, I wish you find kind of like success with the baby, whatever you want to find with it. But I think he's planting in his head, and I think
of course.
Yeah. So I found that really interesting. But I think this Quill character, I think this is Quill. Maybe that's what we'll call him now, Quill. I think he's going to be the moral center, kind of this kind of almost like a mentor, like Yoda was for Luke, I think. And I'm really excited. I don't think that's the last we've seen of him at the end of episode 2.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. And he's teaching him about his culture, or teaching us maybe while talking to him about the mythosaur, from the Mandalorian sigil, because I never knew about that. And then that shows the love for detail Filoni has.
Yeah.
And that Quill is this guy who knows a lot apparently about the galaxy. Well, he doesn't know about the Force, but he knows a lot. And I love those little things,
That's what I loved, partially, because obviously in Game of Thrones, we weren't going to get all the, like, I talk about Game of Thrones a lot here on the channel. We can't get all of the amazing stuff that was in the books. We get some characters giving this expeditiousness of some of the backstory that, some of the beautiful lore that's in the books. This is interesting that you bring it up, Helen, and this is going to be one of those characters that kind of fills in some of those blanks just through conversation between these characters, that kind of like enlightens us into some of these things that we don't know about necessarily about the Mandalorian culture. And by the way, everyone, shameless plug, I am going to be releasing a Mythosaur video tomorrow. So to go along with this podcast.
I loved your video so far on The Mandalorian.
I'm going to make some longer videos. I haven't had a ton of time lately because I've just been getting my footing, but I'm really loving it so far. So we both agree that this character is going to play a big role. One thing potentially I think that could happen is, the Mandalorian is going to more of these kind of metropolitan, more populated areas where the remnants of the Empire are, it's going to be more dangerous to bring this child around. So I think there's a possibility the Mandalorian brings, baby, we'll call it Baby Yoda, back to Arvala 7. Any kind of final thoughts on Quill? We'll call him Quill for now.
Yeah, no, I love I love all these training montage scenes in movies, and it was not really one, but the riding the blurg, that was kind of cool. I mean, I laughed so hard when he did that, and he gave up, and then he told him like, "Hey, come on, you can't."
That's a female.
keep going, and fun fact, the blurg, because I love that movie. Do you remember the Battle of Endor with the cutest thing? Before Baby Yoda, the Ewoks. And so there you saw the blurgs first, and then obviously in Rebels, they were used as well. So we have seen them before, actually.
So really, really interesting character. He's an Ugnaught. He's obviously weathered. He's an older character. You can tell he's been through a lot, but there are some other pictures of him on the ship with the Mandalorian, where the Mandalorian's armor is a little bit more progressed. So I think we're going to see this character again. I really hope so. If they don't show him again, I'm going to be really pissed. But I don't think that's going to be the case. So
if they cast somebody like Nick Nolte, they'll use him. I'm
using him
sure.
for 2 episodes would just be a shame. And the 2 episodes are fairly short, and I think let's discuss this a little bit. Some people have been saying the 2 episodes are quite a bit short. We get 2 in 1 week, which is like a little bit more than an hour. I think it's an hour and 10 minutes that we've got so far. And I think perhaps the episodes going forward are going to be a little bit longer, maybe more about 45, 50 minutes. But I think they kind of have this release schedule, and that's particularly the reason because they want to launch The Mandalorian with the release of Disney Plus, right? And their original schedule was they were going to release these episodes on Friday. So caution everyone to kind of don't freak out about the size of the episodes. I know some people were concerned about how episode 2 is fairly short, but I'm not that concerned about it.
Yeah, and it's not a limited series where I expect it to be an hour.
Yeah.
Like I still think like Obi-Wan will be a limited series with 6 episodes or whatever. And I think this one, I mean, we know there'll be a second season already. It's already green lighted.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they're
I
already
don't
filming on
mind.
it. They've been
Oh, they're
shots on
already
Instagram.
yeah. So look, it's not a limited series. So often these things are not longer than 45 minutes, which is, I mean, fine.
And it doesn't have to release exactly a year later if everything's done. Like it could be like, it could be 8 months from now or 9 months from now. It could be that kind of schedule. We see other television shows that are like that. But of course, those of you that are out there, we had Game of Thrones released kind of on a similar schedule every year. This could be the case where it's maybe released every 8 or 9 months. And, we got 5 or 6 seasons of The Mandalorian, however long they want to put the show on. But I just caution everyone. I think we're going to get some longer episodes.
Yeah, and I also think they always want one Star Wars series to be running on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So I mean, next apparently is the Cassian Andor or Obi-Wan. We don't really know what's first. So maybe
Well, they're gonna film next July, I believe, for Obi-Wan.
Yeah. So look, and then I think because this would make sense that they always have something running. So
I think Obi-Wan will probably, and this is just me speculating, will probably release around the holidays next year. Is my guess.
Before Christmas. I think we said that would make sense. So they
Star
have
Wars
1.5
always does.
year.
Yeah, it always does something around the holidays. Speaking of that, kind of a little sidetracking, Helen. There's a rumor out there that Jon Favreau is going to be doing a holiday special. So,
Oh my God. Okay, wait. Do you remember the holiday special? And do you know what happened? What was referenced in I think episode 2? It was the Life Day. Do you know what No, episode 1 when that prisoner.
Why don't
I don't
you
know.
tell everyone, Helen?
Oh my God. Okay. So that prisoner guy, from episode 1, I don't know his name, from the beginning, from that ice planet. He
The
said,
Mithril
I want
character,
to, yeah, exactly. He said, I want to be home for Life Day. So people who don't know what Life Day is, this is, when I saw this as a kid, my dad showed it to me as a kid in the late 80s, the holiday special. I was like, what is this? Is this a joke? People, if you haven't seen the holiday special, please watch it. Leia is singing Christmas songs. Chewie wants to get home to his family, to Kashyyyk. It's literally the craziest thing ever. Lucas tried to this thing never to be shown again, but it's a classic. Please, if you haven't seen it, Google the holiday special. You'll find it everywhere. And then you get the reference. He's telling about, I want to be home by Life Day, because Chewie wanted the same. It's so good. It's like Star Wars on.
So just rumors. But it's. I mean, Jon Favreau says he wants to do it, and I think Pedro Pascal, man, he's so charismatic. They could definitely pull that off. Interesting that you mentioned the Mithril character, the person that was cast, the actor that was cast as this blue Mithril character, Horatio Sands from Saturday Night Live. Yeah, very very funny actor. So let's talk a little bit about the Force. Because we obviously get, the reveal of Baby Yoda at the end of episode 1, and then throughout episode 2, something that I really like. I think probably one of my favorite scenes was the little Baby Yoda getting out of its crib and trying to heal the Mandalorian, and Mandalorian keeps on putting
3
it back.
times. He always puts him back. It's so cool.
It's so that was like Disney is really smart, right? Because they're trying to pull us in. I mean, the show would be good enough without the Baby Yoda, but I mean, they're just brilliant bringing in this character. So let's talk a little bit about new Force healing. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I love I mean, you can say what you want about Disney and the new Star Wars movies, critique. Yeah, perfectly fine. But I love that they introduce always new force powers. We had a lot with Kylo and Rey, and this is apparently now a new because we haven't seen it before. Healing, and I love that that it's not just because Yoda tells you the force has many ways and you just have to feel it, blah blah. But there's so many different like force powers apparently out there, and I love that this one is shown with a baby, because the thing is, like, even he couldn't just heal, he can lift things as well.
Awfully powerful for a 50-year-old
Yeah.
child.
Yeah, but then I mean, Broom Kid, he was how old was Broom? I mean, Broom
Oh,
Kid
we're
was not
bringing Broom
50.
Kid back.
Yeah, so Broom Kid was not 50. Broom Kid was what, like 8 or 9 or 10,
We're
and
talking
he
about the
could
kid specifically that we see at the stables on
at the stable boy, yeah, and
yeah.
he could lift the thingy. What's it
This is at the
called?
end of the Last Jedi, everyone. Yeah.
At the end, yeah, and he could lift it with force power. So, and he was a young child, and he didn't have any training, right? So, I think they're like making it easier now than Yoda told Luke it was.
But it certainly brings up the debate that we should have if this character is related to Yaddle. For those,
Yeah.
I mean,
Is it a
yeah,
love child? Is it Yoda and Yaddle's love child?
yeah. I mean, we saw Yaddle on the council, obviously, the Jedi Council before Order 66 happened. Do we know what happened with the Yaddle? We don't know.
No, I think she was just in Phantom Menace, and
Yeah,
then we never saw her again. And she had that special. Do you know the name of the force power? I forgot the name, but she had a
no.
special force power, which is very
Oh, which can slow people's bodily functions until they
and
like. Yeah,
kill them, which is, I mean, this is not the Jedi way, right? This
yeah.
is very dark, like Mace Windu. He also, like, his fighting technique, vapor, is also it's a bit dark, or let's say gray, because it's not just the Jedi way, because it's anger. You have to put your anger in there in vapor, and what Yaddle apparently was using doesn't seem like 100% Jedi code, but okay. But we never saw her. We just saw her sitting there, I think, when little Anakin came in and they were judging if he can be a Padawan or if he's too old. I think she was sitting on the council then, not 100% sure.
So it'd be really interesting. There's been some speculation. People have been talking about. Well, I mean, we don't know that much about Yoda's race. That's why people are calling this.
Nothing.
Yeah,
We don't even know
yeah,
what the name is.
yeah, exactly. So this is really interesting. The fact that we're getting this child, so perhaps we might find out more about that.
Yeah.
Hopefully, and Yaddle was extremely powerful Jedi,
Mm.
on the level of Yoda. So,
Mm.
and this child is part of that race. So it'll be interesting to kind of find out where they go with this. But they're definitely setting that up, I think. And I think, I mean, obviously, I think fans would be really happy with that to find out more
Yeah.
about Yoda's race and all of that. So I think this was a great inclusion. I mean, people are just like going crazy. I mean, I think it was trending on Twitter. I saw the other day. I was just checking Twitter and how many people were posting about it, Facebook and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So people are really, really interested in finding out more about Yoda, baby Yoda. So I'm going to take a second, and I just want to let everyone know, if you're enjoying this podcast and you're enjoying what Helen has to say or what I'm having to say, you can find our social media in the description of this video, our channel links, if you want to go subscribe and support our channels. Helen makes amazing Lord of the Rings videos. She just actually released her first couple of videos, so if you want to go check those out, that'll be in the description of this video. And yeah, just join the conversation. We're really, really excited to be doing these podcasts. We're going to be doing actually announcement weekly Mandalorian videos, but for the long term, we're going to be doing more than just Mandalorian Star Wars content. We're going to have actually a special guest next week, Aziz from History of West, amazing guests on. Andrew and Bobby from The Wolf and the Crows are going to be coming to join us to talk some Star Wars too. So it's not just going to be me and Helen. We're going to be having awesome people who love Star Wars on the channel, and lots of fun Star Wars conversations. So if you do want to kind of get in touch with us and ask us questions or stuff that you would like to be discussed in the podcast, just reach out to us and we'll get it on the podcast for you.
And we need to invite some girls. I'm literally always the only girl
Oh,
everywhere.
shut up! You and Gemma. Oh my God! Don't even start. Yeah, we'll definitely have some girls on too. Someone that
Yeah.
also just to shout out who has great Star Wars content is Rawest. So
Yeah.
go check her out. There's awesome other content creators out there, and no, I'm just personally really excited to be creating Star Wars content on the channel. Obviously, my community is mostly Game of Thrones. For most of you out there, know that I create Game of Thrones videos, but we're venturing into different parts of the universe, aren't we, Helen? Discussing Star Wars here on the channel. But let's get back into the discussion. Where should we start off next? Let's talk about the Jawas, I think, because that. I mean, the comedy and
Oh
the pacing,
God.
even though episode number 2 was very short, it was like only 30 minutes, I find. I was just pissing myself laughing during episode 2 with these Jawas, man. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, for the first time, they were subtitled because before you were just, what are they talking about? I don't understand a word. I don't speak Jawa. So I love the
You
subtitle.
speak it like a Wookiee.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was so funny. I mean, they always remind me to remember from He-Man. I'm a big He-Man fan. That little skeleton, he had this little ghost flying around, and they look like those. What's the name of that ghost? Please, people in the chat. I don't want to. Don't make me Google it. Post it in the chat. They remind me of that little blue ghost with a hat. Whatever. Back to the Jawas, but yeah, they kind of. I mean, the egg thing was so ridiculous. I was like, he's mining for gold now, or there will be, I don't know, he's
Some
finding
sort
the
of
chosen one,
artifact,
whatever.
like
Yeah.
artifact, like
And then a
electronic something. Yeah.
bloody egg? Like, come on.
Egg. And then you see the Mandalorian just shaking his head. He's like, I just almost died for
Yeah.
this egg, and they just go after this egg. So that was absolutely brilliant, I found, because they
Yeah.
like we the Mandalorian literally vaporized a bunch of Jawas. And then their trade negotiation demands were just rising for this egg. But I mean, just absolutely hilarious. That was a Mudhorn egg, if I'm not mistaken. That was the creature, the beast that the Mandalorian was taking on, correct?
Mhm. Yeah.
So
We haven't seen that one before. Also,
yeah.
new race
So,
animal.
so one thing I found about the Jawas too, which was great, I think, Helen, is we both kind of spoke about this a little bit before the podcast. This was a great nod to A New Hope, and this is part of the reason why we, without the specifically, it could be Tatooine because we did see the Sandcrawler and all of that before. So, really great inclusion, and I think that most people that I've talked to, people that like Star Wars, the fans that are watching it really like the inclusion of the Jawas.
Yeah, same. And you learn a bit. It's not just funny. You learn a bit about them, that they have kind of a hierarchy. The guy that had the egg first and opened it apparently is their leader or boss or whatever. And yeah, and they
their
showed
shocker guns. The shocker guns are the same as the ones that shot R2-D2 in A New Hope.
Yeah, and then they showed the Mandalorian because you thought, hey, wow, now he's on the ship, and then boom.
He just like almost falls to his death.
But I love that, because he's not the superhero. He's not Rey who can't do anything wrong.
I mean, he has
he struggles, and I love that he's not over powerful.
Yeah,
which is good. I think he'll learn apparently, and I mean he's very, he's like very cocky and telling the client when I had, so yeah, because I'm the best for the job or something, or I like the odds or something like that. You know, like a bit like Han Solo, but you still see he's struggling like Han is. He doesn't always win. He sometimes has to run, and I like that style. So he's not a Rey character.
Well, ultimately, he makes it to the top, and then we see all of the Jawa's guns. I love that.
God, yeah.
He gets zapped like 10,000 times, which is really funny, and then he just kind of falls. And Baby Yoda is following him at just levitating at life speed in this little kind of crib, this egg thing. It's funny because he had to get this egg to make Yoda, who's kind of in an egg, more safe. You know what I mean? Really interestingly, because he has to get the parts for his ship. I love the negotiation too, where he uses his flamethrower and like they take all of his weapons. He's like, no. The Mandalorian's culture is we have weapons, and then he like almost flames the leader. I really found that hilarious too.
Yeah.
So 10-10 for including the Jawas in episode 2.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the pacing for episode 2, Helen, because a lot of people, we've spoken a little bit earlier in the podcast about kind of the length of the episode, but the mix of humor, the mix of, tender, cute moments with Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian, kind of this, lone wolf and cub
Yeah.
stuff on the Western vibes, and then also more serious moments. What were your thoughts on the pacing of the episode, even though it was short?
Yeah, I love, when they started, I didn't even realize it because also in the first one, I think they talked a bit more maybe to introduce us to everything. But
Yeah.
apparently, and I looked it up and it's true, they don't talk, nobody talks till like 8 or 10 minutes in, which is for a 30 plus, what was it, 38 minutes or something? A lot, but you don't feel it because the images and the music and everything is so amazing, and you understand everything that is shown to you visually. You don't need a dialogue. But I love that it is possible, and I think this is what Werner Herzog was referring to when he says like the real cinema is back.
Yeah.
Because remember cinema in the or those film noirs and that stuff from the 70s, it's very similar to that, the vibe. They don't talk a lot. You see somebody smoking for 8 minutes in an office, black and white, just staring out of the window or something. It had that vibe, and I love that. So the pacing is, I mean, some scenes are very fast, but then you have these moments where but you don't miss the
Like Baby
dialogue.
Yoda and the Mandalorian walking through the desert, and then you get the
Oh my
sunset, that beautiful
God.
shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
That apparently,
cinematography is amazing, right?
yeah, yeah. It's yeah. And I mean, I do this for a living,
Yeah.
so I can say, yes, it's epic and grand and just stunning and beautiful, and it speaks for itself. You don't need dialogue because it speaks for itself, and that is something.
Pedro Pascal is absolutely perfect for this type of character, because
Yeah.
even with the Mandalorian having this steel helmet / mask on,
Mm.
you still feel the emotion that he's. I mean, it's just, oh
Mm.
man, this is so fantastic.
Mm.
What I found really interesting too, specifically about Quill and the Mandalorian, after they get all the parts of the ship back from the Jawas, uh, and they're riding back, we obviously the Mandalorian's butt is saved by Baby Yoda. Without Baby Yoda, the
Mm.
Mandalorian would have died for sure. I mean, look,
Mm.
he's holding his like his knife, just ready to get absolutely wrecked. Okay.
Yeah. No.
But one thing is, when they're having this conversation, Quill, he's like, "Hey, like, do you know exactly what happened here?" And he's like, "I don't know exactly, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's endangered physically, but mentally it seems." So it seems like they kind of have this idea that maybe they know what the Force is.
Yeah.
And I just think it's really interesting, we find these characters that are, kind of have their own ways about the universe. They understand kind of, the inner workings of society and stuff like that. But they don't necessarily understand this kind of, greater thing that's permeating the universe.
Yeah, and the thing is, in the prequels, after Palpatine took on power and everything, he basically, said the Jedi tried to overthrow the Republic, blah blah, blah, and the Jedi in something was really bad. And then you see Han in A New Hope saying, "Yeah, I never believed this mumbo jumbo about the Force." So, and Han is also from, like, he's not from the center of he's
Yeah.
not working in the center of the galaxy. Also, like all these Mandalorian scenes, they're like normal people trying to survive in this world. They don't care. Like, we know everything about Jedis. They
Yeah.
don't. They're very far away from the center of the galaxy. They are maybe in the outer rim or from the outer rim, and they just try to survive. What do they care about Jedis? This is just a myth to them. Same like Rey. Do you remember when Rey said in the beginning, Luke Skywalker, I thought he was just a myth? And this is how
And then
these
we see the
people,
kids playing with the figurines as well. When they go to
yeah.
the casino planet. So
Yeah, and this is just a myth to them. It's not real. For us, we know everything and we know who Luke is and everything. They don't. And this gives you this vibe. So they know there must be something. This kid, they don't think it's a trick. They don't think the kid is a magician or something. But they don't really know because they don't know about Jedis and their powers and stuff, because the Empire did a really good job, propaganda. Here we are again with the Nazis. That worked pretty well. And yeah.
it's
I
gonna
love
be
that.
really interesting too, because obviously the way the conflict is set up between the Mandalorian and kind of the remnants of the Empire, the Mandalorian, like I said earlier, is bound by these contracts. So when he gets a job, he's going to try to finish his job so he can get his payment. But there's this morality issue, right? Like, okay, like
Yeah.
I can't just kill a child. And I think this is going to be a huge bombshell, I think, and we're going to find more about this other me. But the Mandalorian specifically in this armor scene mentions that he was a foundling, Helen, which
Yeah.
is, I mean, so we're going to find out more about obviously the Mandalorian culture, and we hear the blacksmith also say it's good that it's back with the tribe, which is,
Yeah.
obviously. So we're going to find more about this Mandalorian culture and kind of their inner workings and kind of the things that are important to them morally. So
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I think that we're going to kind of see that even though the Mandalorian is more of an anti-hero right now, he's like, kind of neutral. He's kind of just trying to survive in the universe. We're going to see more that he has more of like these paladin-esque, knight-esque, kind of qualities to him.
Yeah, but same like same like Han. Han
Yeah.
in the beginning, he just wanted his money, right? He worked for them because of money, so he can pay back Jabba. So he wanted the money, and then he was like, he got more and more into the rebels, and then he was
And
like,
Leia.
okay, yeah,
Leia.
and into Leia, yeah, and he was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to prolong this. I'm staying. I'm helping you again and again and again, and I think this is the way of what the Mandalorian will go through. He's not a scoundrel, but he's working for building his armor or whatever, and his people, and helping his tribe, I guess, and but then he has there must be some moral in this story, right? And yeah.
So that's going to be, I think, one of the overarching kind of stories of this season is the signet, right? The signet hasn't been revealed yet, because we know that specifically there's going to be a type of color which represents a specific mission throughout the Mandalorian. Yellow, I think yellow is for revenge, and then there's all these different colors which is specifically associated for some sort of mission with their life. And I think that's going to obviously tie into kind of the history of what the Mandalorian had to experience. I mean, he was orphaned. I think his parents put him in this in kind of this protective area. They kind of locked him in this area where there were droids were killing everyone. The Confederacy of Independent Systems were collecting the Beskar steel, and kind of just looks like they're attacking Mandalore. Hopefully we're going to find out more about that. But I think the overarching kind of story that's going to thread through each episode is obviously the signet and him getting more pieces of his armor, and the kind of this relationship with the blacksmith, which I think we're going to find out more in the next episode, because we didn't get any of the reaction from the Imperialists and the Empire as to the Mandalorian not honoring the part of his contract. So we're going to see Gina Carano, I think, who probably is going to be the blacksmith. I'm not sure. Possibly could be her character. We're going to, I think, see her as well. I think
statue wise it would fit, right? Because she's tall and she's like muscle. She's a WWE or whatever.
The MMA, mixed martial arts.
MMA, MMA fighter. So it could be her. I thought the same. I mean, if they cast somebody like her again, they don't just use her for one episode. So she either shows up in the next one, is my bet, or she is the blacksmith, like you said. But I want to go back to the armor for 1 second, because again, I just can say, please watch Rebels if you're interested in that Mandalorian culture, because Sabine Wren, she's one of the most important characters and one of the main characters in Rebels, and she's a Mandalorian. And she says, like, literally in the beginning, she says, because they are asking her about her armor, and everybody knows this is very important for the Mandalorians, and she says, my armor is heritage for my family, and it's over 10,000 years old, and I just adapted it to my needs. And you see how important this armor thing is for them. It's like in our times, people inherit, I don't know, titles and whatnot, and castles, and for them, or rings or jewelry or whatever, and for them it was that armor, right? So it's really, really important. And I think the armor itself, and this is why he got back to Herzog, and
there was extra.
He turned around.
There was extra for whatever the remaining foundlings.
But I don't know. I mean, I think it's more the money they will get from the extra to help the foundlings. This is what I understood, but I don't know. I mean, we don't know. Yeah, but again, so if you're interested in that, really, Rebels is so good, and you learn so much. And just one last topic on that, because Sabine, she invented something, because we learn Mandalorian armor because of the Beskar steel is even lightsabers can't hit you, or like they can't go through this steel, right?
Yeah.
Even lightsabers, and blasters obviously as well. So she invited a weapon, I think it was called the Duchess or something, that can kind of destroy the armor, and that was a big problem, and I think she later destroyed the plans for that, but I think the Empire found that. I don't really remember, it's a long time ago because it was in the beginning of Rebels. I have to watch that again, but the Empire, I think, knew that this is possible, and then Sabine destroyed this, and it was a big problem for Mandalore, obviously, because that's their shield, right? And then one of their own people developed something that can destroy that Beskar steel. Yeah, that was a big plot line, but really important. Maybe something like that plays in here as well. We don't know. Maybe in season 2 or something.
Well, maybe Carl Weathers' character, Grief Karga, knows more about this because he's specifically the one that gives the Mandalorian this off book. Like, I mean, he's like, hey, like there's like the Mandalorian's like, I'm not interested in these kind of. I mean, like times are tough right now. Like we get kind of this grand scope of things that it's the living isn't great because of the way things kind of went down. But what do you think about his character? Do you think he's, I mean, going to create trouble for the Mandalorian? I mean, it seems like they have a good relationship, but I mean, this guy might be more inclined to side with the imperialists and the empire because he's more at risk. His business is at risk. Obviously there's a specific set of rules, and we know that, Werner Herzog's character is going to be probably connected to Giancarlo Esposito's Moff character, who we're going to be seeing. I believe it's Moff Gideon. He looks like he's going to be an antagonist for this season. So where do you think Carl Weathers' Grief Karga kind of stands? Is he going to be a character that's going to be more on the Mandalorian side of things?
No, I mean, you got the feeling in the first one, but then I think you can, like, with money, you can influence the guy. And so whoever has the money, well, apparently now Imperial credits are not worth anything.
I mean, he only pays him half of the calamari credits.
Yeah, calamari credits. I love that reference. So I don't want to bet on it, but I think he's
someone
in
who can
between.
backstab.
He can switch. Yeah, he can switch sides pretty easy if you pay him a good price.
So his kind of allegiance lies where the money lies.
Yeah, that I would say that for now. But then again, the Mandalorian needs some friends. I think the blacksmith, whoever she is, will be on that side, obviously. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Maybe he just, maybe in season 2 he is the new moral compass. We don't know. I think those people won't go away. I think we'll have them in season 2 because he's the boss of this guild, right?
And we always have redemptive arcs too. So if a character does something that's necessarily not in line with their morality, and they have to make these tough decisions because they're in a tough spot, they might, be influenced by someone else who has more power than them. Obviously, there's different types of militaries in the Star Wars universe, obviously, and I would be pretty scared if someone was pointing a gun at me. You know what I mean? But but it's gonna be really interesting to kind of see where his character lies, because he seems like he's a leader of kind of this bounty guild that we're seeing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we got a few more things we want to talk about today, Helen. There's IG-11, which is a great character. Taika Waititi.
Oh my God. Whenever he said, I'm going to self-destructive mode, I was like laughing so hard. No, don't.
I believe really Taika Waititi is actually directing the finale of this season.
Oh, is he? Yeah.
Yeah, episode number 8. There's 8 episodes this season, so it'll be interesting to see if we see that character again. It would be.
I think he's dead. He's dead.
You think he's dead? That's cool though, just to have him at least for one episode. But it seems that he is going to be directing an episode. Hopefully, he'll be directing episodes in the future, because I absolutely love Thor Ragnarok. And other projects in the shadows, if you've ever seen that. But it was interesting to see kind of him. That's a nice Easter egg that we can kind of point to, Helen. What are some other Easter eggs that kind of really caught your eye within the first 2 episodes?
Okay, so literally right at the beginning, there's that Kowakian monkey on the barbecue, like and the other one looking him being fried on the barbecue, complete in
Kind
sheer
of like we got with the
terror.
Porgs and Chewbacca in the Last
Yeah,
Jedi.
yeah, exactly. Maybe that was a reference. Yeah. So those thingies as the annoying thingies in Jabba's palace scene from Empire Strikes Back. That was so good. I love that one. And I think we talked about a lot already, like references. I mean, obviously, him lying there with his telescope thingy. That was like, and then the Sand People showed up for Luke. That was exactly the same scene,
Yeah,
just
that was a
showing up
callback to
in
the
front.
original trilogies. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So those were like the ones I can think of. There were a lot
Oh,
more.
also the symbol of the mythosaur. Let's talk about that a little bit.
We
'Cause-
already talked about that.
yeah, but like I mean, like on the rifle, was that there on the rifle?
Ah, oh, I didn't see. Oh, I didn't see that.
Well,
What?
I don't know if I'm wrong on this one, but I think, but obviously I think I mean, I find it quite interesting that, I mean, he's already fought two beasts in 2 episodes. Like he's gonna
Yeah.
fight one each episode leading up to the Mythosaur eventually. Are we gonna have him return to Mandalore is an interesting question because we do see,
Yeah.
there's a woman in the trailer who's grabbing his face. So
Yeah.
or his helmet at least. So
Yeah.
perhaps he does remove his helmet. Probably not, but
For certain things.
ooh, Helen, what are you hinting at here? I thought this was a PG-13
Yeah,
podcast.
no, it is.
Yeah, anything like kind of just final thoughts. We've been going for an hour here. I think we can go a lot longer because we are both huge Star Wars fans, and for all Star Wars fans out there, kind of let us know in the comment section what are some of your favorite Easter eggs. But overall, what are some of the things that kind of just really stood out to you, Helen?
The visuals and the music, both.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm a big sucker for dialogue. Normally, this is why I love movies like all Quentin Tarantino movies.
Yeah.
But then again, the music. But I love the dialogues. I love good dialogues. But here, I just love the visuals, and it works for me. And it's a Star Wars feeling. And like you said, I didn't have that many good Star Wars experience in the last two movies. I don't
Yeah.
want to bash anything, but it wasn't like I didn't felt
I really
for
enjoyed
Empire
Solo.
Strikes
I
Back.
didn't
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I really enjoyed Solo. I didn't particularly like love or hate Rogue One. I thought it was okay.
Oh, Rogue One was
Um,
amazing, but that's a while
I,
ago now. Yeah.
yeah, it's a while ago now. I thought it was okay. I thought it was like 7-10 for me.
Really? I
Um,
loved Rogue One.
no,
It was
but
9
the
out of
visuals were
10.
great. I thought it was like I mean, Cassian Andor is a compelling character. I thought
Yeah.
they did great castings. But I mean,
Yeah.
overall, I think for me, really excited about the future of The Mandalorian. I think that the future of Star Wars, I do believe it's going to be in television. I mean, they
Yeah.
got Ewan McGregor signed on for Obi-Wan. The Mandalorian has great castings. They're already working on season 2. 20 million people downloaded Disney Plus in the first day alone. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's all just for The Mandalorian, but The Mandalorian on launch, I mean, this is something that they obviously focused on.
Yeah,
So I
not
think
counting in
yeah.
us poor Europeans, just saying.
but I do think the future is really bright, and I think the critics, there's critics and kind of influencers and content creators who have seen the episodes. I think up to episode 3 or 4, and they say each episode kind of just gets better and better. So I think overall, I really enjoyed the first 2 episodes. I don't usually give perfect scores, so I'm gonna give 4.5 out of 5 for both episodes combined. I really, really enjoyed them. I thought the pacing, the combination of the pacing, the cinematography, the characters, the Star Wars lore, the music, for me was just, I mean, I couldn't have enjoyed it anymore, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What would you give out of 5, Helen?
Yeah. 4.
4?
Oh,
Okay.
but 5 is just so low. I would give a 9 out of 10 because that would
Yeah.
make it higher than 4 out of 5.
Yeah. Okay.
I would give it that.
And
For both combined, like you said, because I see it as one episode, because maybe it was kind of one episode, and then
we both believe that
like
the episode
third
is going to
one.
get longer.
Yeah, yeah.
But let us know in the chat what you thought of the episodes. Kind of give us a score and kind of like your first impressions of what you thought, your favorite Easter eggs, your favorite moments. Of course, I think we said we each had like 10 favorite moments for cheating when we said we're going to only have a couple. But that's how it goes. We're huge Star Wars fans. We don't claim to be experts by any means, but we're going to mess up on some of these things. So point it out to us if we made any mistakes. If you have anything, kind of any information that we can kind of focus on, let us know and tell us what you would like us to discuss in the podcast. Me and Helen are really open. Obviously, we want you to ask your questions. We want you to enjoy the podcast. And overall, I think we're just really excited to talk about The Mandalorian and Star Wars in general. And just really excited for more Mandalorian episodes. I'm actually excited for the wait. I enjoy the anticipation as opposed to just binge watching everything. And I think this is the right format for The Mandalorian. Just the anticipation for the next episode.
And question, will we ever learn his name? Because his name
it's already revealed. It's already revealed.
What is it?
Man, I'm gonna search it on Google right now. Off the top of my head.
Because that was always my question. Because in Rebels,
Din Djarin is his name.
Oh, look,
Din Djarin. Yeah,
okay.
he revealed it in, I believe, an interview with EW. EW.com. I'll actually, you know what? I'll put that in description of this video for those of you that want to go check it out. But
good to know. Look.
It's DYN space JARREN, Din Djarin. So we're gonna find out more about that. Really, really excited. Pedro Pascal got to reveal it. So, but he said tough luck about the Mandalorian having his helmet on and stuff. But I don't know. This woman in the trailer. What are you most excited for? Like, let's give a quick preview for the next episode, and then we're gonna wrap things up. Helen, quick preview. What are you most excited for in the next episode?
To show how the plot plays out with the client. So what's his decision? Because I think still he wants to sell the baby for the Beskar steel. I think he's still on that way. But then something happens, or the baby cries, or he looks into his big eyes, and then he's like, oh no, and then he kills the stormtroopers or something. But I want to see that. I want to see what happens with the client.
I think we're going to get the inclusion of a couple of new characters in the next episode. Giancarlo Esposito, who plays this Moff Gideon. I think he's going to be the main villain. I think he's going to be ranking just above Werner Herzog's character, but Werner Herzog might have like these more kind of like nefarious scientific type goals other than the Moff. Moff might be just more like of an imperialist.
Military,
But I also think we might see Gina Carano's character. What I think we're going to see in the next, I think the stormtroopers are going to go see this blacksmith, and I think the blacksmith is going to kill all those stormtroopers and put their heads on pikes. So I think that's kind of my prediction for the next episode. I think those stormtroopers are going to die. I think we're going to see even better fight scenes in the next episode, because this one was more. It was like the second episode was more just focused on one story, and I think we're going to hit those multiple plot points in the next episode. So really excited for that, and just learning more about kind of the backstory of the Mandalorian and his culture. So thanks everyone for watching this episode of We Don't Know What It's Called Star Wars podcast yet. This is kind of just an extension of the Fundum podcast that we have here on channel Lazora Hype. But we would love to kind of hear your ideas maybe for a name for our podcast. We're really, really open to that. We're going to continue to do kind of weekly podcasts. There's tons and tons of news, tons of things to cover, and obviously lots to cover with The Mandalorian in episode 9 coming up. So let us know in the comment section. Really open to that. Mm-hmm. And Helen, thank you for coming on today and being my lovely co-host as always. Really excited to do next week when we're going to have a special guest, and Aziz, a great friend of ours from History of Westeros. That's going to be really fun to have another guest on to kind of supplement our geeky and nerding out of Star Wars lore and whatnot. So, where can we find you, and what's next for you, Helen?
Yeah, as you said, finally, and so many people have shared that and reached out to me. Finally, I got content on my channel, The Clueless Fangirl. And I'm creating a lot of lore videos on Lord of the Rings at the moment. I want to do Star Wars as well, but for now, again, I do have a regular job, pretty big job and a new job, and I'm just trying to learn what I have to do there and trying to learn how YouTube works. So I'm pretty busy. Well, I use Carl for the Carl and Robert and Gemma for how to learn how to do YouTube and take over the YouTube world. But no, I'm really happy I finally did it. Just took me 2 years. And if you're interested in Lord of the Ring, go to my channel. I have a few lore videos up, a lot more, like 2 per week. I can promise not more. And yeah, that's it. But I'll be here on your channel talking Star Wars with you. I love it.
Yeah, same. Really, really excited to be creating Star Wars content on the channel. I'm going to be trying my best to do daily Mandalorian videos. Next month is going to be crazy because The Witcher and The Expanse and Vikings will be out. But for right now, at least for the rest of November, daily Mandalorian videos. Lots of tomorrow. I'm going to have a Mythosaur video, kind of talk a little bit about that. Get as much information as I can on that. There's not a ton out there, but we're going to speculate and kind of talk about that a little bit. Talk a little bit about Mandalore and the Beskar Steel and kind of how all that relates to that. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, feel free to like this video. The support really helps out the channel. And if you do want to get notifications for this podcast and Star Wars content in this podcast, make sure you hit that notification button and subscribe to the channel for more Star Wars content on the way. Thanks for watching the podcast, everyone. You can find all the links to our social media in the description of this video. And may the Force be with you.
Bye-bye.